Welcome to the Live Your Possible podcast, the show about sparking and discovering endless possibilities where we work, live, and play. A safe place where we can help you peel back the cover to what may be blocking you from being your most authentic and happiest self.
It is my honor and pleasure to welcome Lisa Nichols to the Live Your Possible podcast. Lisa is the CEO and co-founder of Technology Partners, a woman business enterprise and provider of premier IT staffing solutions and IT leadership development. Named among the most influential businesswomen, Lisa's influence continues to be recognized by her peers and the greater St. Louis community. Lisa and her husband, Greg, founded Technology Partners in 1994, driven by their passion for revolutionizing the staffing industry with their transparent business model. Greg and Lisa have prioritized creating mutual wins for their employees, clients, and community. Lisa is also the host of the Something Extra podcast, inspired by her daughter, Allie, who has Down syndrome. She scientifically has an extra 21st chromosome, but has many something extras. In this leadership podcast, Lisa interviews leaders from all walks of life to learn what it takes to be a leader in today's marketplace. Listen in today to learn more about all of that, along with some other items like leadership lessons from her 7-year-old self and her daughter, Allie, that are helping her structure a culture of trust that allows everyone to thrive. Lisa also gives her perspective on engaging more women back in the underrepresented technology space. She leads by example by sharing how possibilities are endless when we let our guard down and connect with a greater purpose and the something extra that defines us. Lisa is a storyteller and connects with all of us on so many levels. Stay tuned to find the spark in you and enjoy the show. Welcome, Lisa, to the Live Your Possible podcast. I'm so excited to talk with you today.
Well, I am so excited to be here, Darrin. And you and I have just had a little sidebar conversation, and I already feel like my cup is filled up for the day. So, it's great to be with you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here. I got to say, we had a wonderful conversation on your podcast, Something Extra. And one of the things we talked about after that show is adopting one word at the beginning of each year. It's something that shows up that we look forward to every year. And I actually read an article that was on your website, and you do a great job writing too. And in 2021, you used the phrase love more. 2022, you used the phrase be still. What did you use for 2023? I didn't see that. I didn't know what you're using for this year. So I'd love to know, why did you choose the one word phrase, and what does 2023 look like? You know
what? And I broke the rules this year because I've got many words. It's not just one word. I actually adopted a mantra for this year, Darrin, and it's relentless, consistent focus on the things that matter most.
Perfect. I love it.
Yeah. And, it's not necessarily doing more things. Right. I kind of talked about that. It's not necessarily being busy, but it's being relentlessly focused on the things that matter most. So then the next question you would ask yourself is, well, what matters most? Right. And, I kind of talked about, I think, it's awesome to ask ourselves these questions.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And, as you're going through the day, is that something that you will often remind yourself as you think about this mantra?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many good things that we can be doing with our time. We all have 168 hours a week of time. There's so many good things, but I don't want just the good things. I want the best things. I want to be doing the best things with my time. And so, if I'm spending time at a networking event when I really should be with my family, I haven't consistently focused on the things that matter most. Right. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Now, one of the things that you do that I think is pretty incredible is your podcast, Something Extra. And I know that's a special one for you. And if you don't mind, for my audience, just briefly describing what it is. And I need to ask you too, what your Something Extra is. And I don't know if you share that with your audience, but I'd love for you to share it with mine.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we did, interestingly enough, we did that as a family. And said, what do you think my something extra is? And, we had some discourse over that, our family, which is really, really special, and just knowing what you see in your children and your spouse. But the precipice for Something Extra, we started Something Extra in 2018. We have in the precipice for it, and the kind of the inspiration for it, I guess I should say, is our daughter, Allie. Allie is our youngest child with Down syndrome. And scientifically, Allie has an extra 21st chromosome, as all Down syndrome children do. But when you get to know her, Darrin, She got so many something extras. If you've ever known somebody with Down syndrome, you know how loving they can be, how compassionate, how accepting they can be. Allie does not see skin color. She does not see size. She sees people. And I've got beautiful stories of how she's demonstrated that over the years. We don't have time for it, but just really, really short. Years ago, like when the kids were about 13, 14, 15, we were in El Salvador for a mission trip and went into a prison with gang members. We had guards in that, but these gang members had tattoos all over their faces. And Allie started conversing with these guys. Now, here's the funny thing about this whole thing. I tell Darrin, she does not speak Spanish and they did not speak English. We had an interpreter, we had a translator that was helping us communicate with these guys, but she was having a real conversation. She saw a soul. She saw a person, not necessarily the tattoos on their faces. So, she demonstrates that all the time, all these something extras. So, we started thinking in 2018, and there will be a book. I pray that I don't die before the book gets done, but because there needs to be a something extra book. But, I just said, hey, really, we got to do something with this. What is the something extra that every leader needs? And so, our marketing department came up with that. They said, hey, if you would start podcasting, you can interview leaders and we can use that, as our title for the podcast. And so that was kind of the precipice for the podcast. And now I don't know, we're probably close to 250 episodes. It has just been such an amazing journey. I feel like every time I have a guest on, Darrin, I come away a richer person, and I just hope that that's the case for our listeners. So.
What a beautiful story. Allie's making such impacts in the world. Isn't that special too, about just seeing people for who they are in front of us and not having any biases or any barriers, and just seeing the love and the beauty in front of us? Imagine that.
I know. Imagine how our world would be different, if that were the case. And that is the honest truth. she doesn't care if you're tall or short or large or small, or, like I said, the color of your skin. It really does not matter to her. She sees a person, she sees a human being. It's like, okay, here's someone I need to interact with.
Yeah. So Lisa, what would be your something extra that you bring out, or maybe your family had chosen for you?
And I'll tell you what my family has said, very, I'm a good listener is what my family says. I'm a very connected person, meaning I see the connections with people and I love to connect people, very relational. I think I get that from my dad, Darrin. My dad, we would be on a trip and somewhere, and my mom and I would go shopping and come out. My dad's talking to this man on a bench. And I'm like, do you know that guy? And he goes, nope, never met him before, but now I do, and just was able to strike up a conversation, find commonality and common ground with everyone, but very relational. I think I'm pretty empathic. I think I'm a pretty empathic person. And I think a lot of that truly comes from having a child with special needs and seeing how she navigates the world. So those are a few of mine, I would say.
Yeah, some of those that you mentioned, even relating to Allie again, it's just about how we kind of look through life with our children's eyes, or even our own childlike eyes that are within us that we've kind of outgrown, right? Allowing ourselves to slow down, be empathic, be loving, and just relational. That's what we're born to do, right? We come out looking for acceptance and empathy, and we're looking for connections. And then what happens?
Yeah. What happens? I don't know. Yeah, we do. We get preconceived notions. We, like you said, even biases, sometimes unconscious biases toward other people. If we could just look at people differently, through that human being. They're another human being. You'd ask me, I'm going to pivot here for a minute. You'd ask me about light up moments. Yeah. You go, what are those light up moments that are giving you clarity? And I would say to you, seriously, just about every day, I have some sort of light up moment through Allie's eyes, and Darrin, it can be the most ordinary, non-special, just ordinary day. And she'll be like, it's a good day.
I love it.
And, there's been nothing special really about the day. But for her, it's like, it's a good day. If she gets to be with her family, the only time that may not be the case is if she didn't get her Starbucks and she really, really wants her Starbucks. And we don't have time for that, But she sees the simple gifts in each day. And, I've come to believe, too, that there's silver linings in every day, in every circumstance. It's our ability to recognize it, if we will take the time to acknowledge. But I will tell you, for me, Darrin, one of the big ahas for me is when I realized I could be that silver lining for someone else. And it doesn't have to be a huge thing. It can be a word of encouragement. It can be a simple nod of the head, to say, I see you, or a smile. But when I do that, when I have that kind of perspective, that brings me great joy, because I know that's, going back, not to get off too much off topic here, but you'd mentioned love more. That was an epiphany for me in 2018. And I think you and I have talked about this, but I'm a Jesus follower. And I follow the Bible. And in the Bible, in Matthew, Jesus said the two greatest commandments are to love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul. And the second one is like it, to love your neighbors yourself. And so my epiphany was, wow, if those are the two greatest commandments, I probably should focus on that. And I probably should figure out how I can love more. And that's where the whole love more came from, and it's not just words that we say, but it's the actions, that we take every day, whether it's, like I said, it could be a note of encouragement. It could be a word of encouragement.
Yeah. It's, tying back to what you started with too, about focusing on what matters, right? That's loving our neighbors, people we work with. And I remember our interview on your podcast, we talked about this light that's inside everybody and the possibilities that are there. And you had mentioned, and I will never forget it, I loved what you said. And not exactly what you just said, but similar in the sense of, you said, it's almost like there's clouds in the way at times, and we need to help part those clouds for people so they can actually feel it, believe it, and see it themselves, and see the light so they can, turn it up or do the things they didn't think they could do or believe, or, all those fun things. So I appreciate that inspiration as you continue to give that out.
Yeah.
What other challenges have you had to overcome, that maybe you're still thinking about today? It seems like you're rather busy. You're giving back in so many ways. You're connected in the community of St. Louis and really internationally. I mean, what are some of the things that maybe you've overcome that you're trying to give back in different ways?
Yeah. Overcoming things. Yeah. I don't know how much time we have here. I don't think this is that a long enough podcast to go through all of that. But, like I will tell you, and you and I kind of talked in a sidebar conversation about this, and I'll explain myself. But in our business, so we've been doing, my husband and I co-founded our company 29 years ago, IT staffing solution, leadership development. So we've been doing this a long time. There was a period of time, Darrin, where I especially would chase our competition. And here's what I mean by that. I would be looking at what all of our competition was doing. Oh my goodness, our competition's at this networking event. I got to be at that networking event. Our competition does this conference every year. We got to be at that conference. And I will tell you, there were many years where we spent 50,000 plus going to this one conference every year because our competition was there, and you and I've kind of talked about that. It's like, there's a fine balance there, because you need to show up to stay top of mind, for the business. And, I feel like that's really part of my chief job for the entire organization, is to make sure that I'm in those rooms. But I will tell you, we don't chase our competition anymore. We don't chase our competition. We just try to be the best us, and they may be doing something else, but we are doing other things, and I would say that I'm seeing as an organization that can be a challenge. And as an individual, sometimes I think people try to be like someone else, or, oh, that person's out there doing this, I need to be doing that too. No, my joy comes when I am using the God-given gifts that I've been given to serve other people. And my gifts may look different than yours, and realizing that my something extras are probably different than yours, right? Yeah. And so that's one of the things, a challenge I had to overcome. And just, oh my goodness, there's so many more. I will tell you, when we first started the business, I'm not a huge process person. My husband was a software engineer, very methodical, very systems oriented, right? And I'm more of a kind of a free spirit. I was in sales, as part of my career. And so, the processes, I'm like, oh, they felt like stifling. They felt, why do we have to always define our processes? Well, Darrin, after many, many mistakes that I made by not following processes, I'm a believer now. I'm like, that's where you get your consistency, the quality. That's where every day doesn't feel like Groundhog Day because you're repeating the same mistakes, So that was a big one for me. I mean, oh my goodness, literally the list could go on and on. I remember when it changed. So it used to be like in hiring, we would hire someone and, I let people, non-performers, linger too long because I would think, oh, if we could just give them a little bit more time, if we can give them a little bit more coaching, they'll get it. Well, sometimes they do, but, in many cases, Darrin, it just doesn't happen that way. Right? They just were not cut for that particular role. What I realized, I'll never forget, Greg and I were on a trip and we were driving on this trip and we were listening to John Maxwell and a bunch of John Maxwell podcast and some of his, audio clips and that. And I'll never forget, him talking about when you allow the non-performers to linger around, the top performers will resent that. They will see that as, unfair to them because it's bringing down the whole, organization. And there's a major cost to a mishire. It's the cost that, the hard costs, the things that you paid them, maybe possibly used a search firm, right? But then the morale costs, the onboarding, the training. I mean, there's a huge cost. So that, is an area and a challenge that I've really had to grow in. And now when we hire, our vetting process is very stringent, hire slow, slow.
Yeah. Get the right talent in there, to your point. Folks that want to learn, right, continue to expand and continue to contribute back in. You have such a wonderful team in your organization now. How many people are you up to now as far as?
We've got 450.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
29 years in business. And to your point, you don't want to be like everybody else, right? I think what you've been saying all along is really be different, be authentic, accept our differences, accept that we do have strengths that we don't have to copy other folks, right? Be who we are. And I think that's something that it's really important for us to remind ourselves and then look for those differences in other people too. Because I think collectively, that's really the difference maker. And I think you have a tagline or it's a purpose, something like that, where you talk about together, we are improving our world. So what does that mean to you at Technology Partners?
Yeah, that's good. Well, we see ourselves, we're partnering with our clients, right? We, just to name a few, Bayer is a client of ours. MasterCard International is a client of ours. We're partnering with, other organizations that are doing amazing things out there in the world. Bayer, they acquired Monsanto. So we were a partner for Monsanto for 26 of our 29 years, Darrin. And their mission is to feed the world. That's a great mission. Right. And that's what they're doing. They're doing research on roots, that can grow in arid places, to feed the world. And so when our team comes along beside an organization like that, that's doing meaningful things, we're part of that equation too. We're part of the story.
Yeah, that's cool.
So that's just one example. I mean, but our clients are doing wonderful things. Panera is a client of ours, and they're improving the efficiency of people getting the Fuji apple salads that they want, or the Cuban chickens or whatever. Clean ingredients. I mean, yeah, we've got clients that are doing amazing things, and so we're part of that equation as a technology partner of that organization. We're part of the story.
Yeah, that's good to sync up to what other people's purpose or greater aspirations are going to be, right? And helping that and further it along or execute it together. It's powerful.
Yes, it is.
Talking about finding joy along the way, right? You're not having to be everywhere. You're finding joy here where it really matters, which is really cool. I mean, I have to kind of joke a little bit. I think you got your accounting degree at Murray State. I have an accounting major, which I'm not doing any of that work anymore.
Right.
You can tell. How did you get to this place, right? You got to this place of this greater purpose with technology partners and connecting with the world differently. How did you go from accounting to now being a CEO of this wonderful company?
Yeah, sometimes I scratch my head and wonder the same thing, Darrin. But I will tell you, one of the huge influences in my life, I met my husband, Greg, at a very early age in church. We started dating. We're from Kentucky. And I always jokingly say, I promise we're not kissing cousins, no matter what you've heard, sometimes about Kentucky. But, we grew up together, like 3 and 5 was when we met. So we started going to the same church. We dated all the way through high school and college. When we were now we both have had entrepreneurial bents. I started my first business when I was 7. If we have time to talk about that, I'll tell you a little bit about that little business. My dad taught me some really good leadership lessons through that. But we both have always had this entrepreneurial bent. But even in high school, when we were dating, Greg would talk and he goes, one day, if we can build a company that can do well, do really well as an organization, we can do a lot of good in the world. And that was kind of like his dream. And then I, that really influenced my aspirations. And I'm like, that's a train I want to be on, So, I mean, I held on to him. I'm like, that's the guy that I want to attach my train to. But so when Greg's older than me, a little bit older than me, a couple of years older. So when he went to college, he decided he was going to be an accountant. So then 2 years later, here I come along as a freshman. He's like, you should be in accounting. You should be in accounting. And I'm like, well, I thought I was going to go into medicine or something. That's what I had kind of prepared for in high school. And he goes, no, go into accounting. And then when we graduate, we'll start a company. We'll start a firm. And so I did, I decided, okay, I would do that. But he ended up getting a double major. He got a degree in computers, because that was really emerging. And he just loved it. He went on and finished his degree in accounting. But I went on and said, okay, I will go and do corporate accounting, and did that for 5.5 years at McDonnell Douglas, which was a phenomenal company, Darrin. Phenomenal.
Yeah.
Greg and I both started our careers there, and we point back to that experience all the time as, teaching us like discipline and, it wasn't willy nilly. It was very methodical. It was very, good, right? They're building planes. But anyway, after about 5 years, I said, I really think I could do this. And I was actually in a management training program. So if I'd stayed, I would have probably just, possibly risen through the ranks. But I'm like, I just don't enjoy this. And so I ended up, and I did in when I was a senior in college, I thought, I think I want to do sales. That's what I really want to do. But, you'd already gone through all of this. I made it through advanced theory and cost accounting and all this. So I'm like, no, I gotta stay that course. But I did end up leaving Mac and going into corporate sales for another Fortune 500 company. And so Greg and I both spent the first 10 years in corporate America. And then we said, let's build a company. It's time. Let's build a company. And on a Saturday, we went down to our basement and said, let's start a company. And cool. So it wasn't. We kind of had that idea when we were in high school, but, didn't really know exactly what that was going to look like, because it certainly wasn't computers at that time.
Yeah, congratulations. And 29 years later, talking about leadership ideas, we definitely have to hear about those 7-year-old leadership ideas you earned and learned out of that business diet. And also translate that to today. Like, how's that showing up, and what other leadership ideas do you have for folks out there?
Yeah, that's a loaded question. I mean, I tell you, my growing up, I love that. I love that you asked me that question. What kinds of things growing up really have influenced you today? Because it really kind of made me dig deep. But, that real quickly, that leadership story, I was 7, and I really always was looking for, like, how can I build something? And I love flowers, Darrin. I still do. I mean, I'll have fresh flowers in our house all the time. Even if somebody doesn't buy them for me, I'll go buy them for myself because I love them so much. But I loved them even then. And one day I had this idea. I'm like, you know what? I can build a flower business. So I went over, we didn't have flowers. I always had asked my parents for flowers. They had a humongous garden. We had several acres, in Kentucky, and my dad had every vegetable known to man, but we didn't have flowers, but our neighbors had tons of flowers. So one day, you know where this is going, don't you? Yeah. One day I took my red wagon over there and I started picking the blooms off of their flowers, and I would stick pins in them, and I went around and sold them as corsages.
Oh my gosh.
For 25 cents. Okay. And, I mean, it wasn't a neighborhood. So, I mean, I had to walk, a couple of houses down. But my leadership lesson was when my dad found out that I had stolen these flowers, he said, you have to go back to every person that you sold a corsage to, and you need to give them their money back. Then you have to go over to the Smith's house and go and tell them that you apologize for stealing their flowers. And, Darrin, I mean, here's the thing. My dad could have gone, I'm 7. He could have gone over to Mr. Smith's house and said, hey, I am so sorry. My daughter, she came over. You see all of those stems that are just sticking out of your yard with no bloom? That was my daughter. That was not the rabbits. He could have so easily done that for me. But no, he made me go, and he made me own that mistake. So, big leadership lesson, don't steal your cost of, your goods. My cost of goods sold were 0.
Exactly.
Right? So my profit was 100%, of revenue. But anyway, but Dad, that was amazing. But, owning your mistakes, saying sorry, and apologizing when you make the mistakes. That's a great leadership lesson, and we as leaders, I make mistakes every day. Don't try to push that off on somebody else. Well, if this person had done their job, then don't play the blame game, own it. Right. I mean, I still do that to this day. I mean, we had a situation not too long ago with a client, and really, there was a process that was missed that really wasn't my responsibility, but, I took the fall for that. And I said, I'm so sorry that was on me. We didn't do a proper handoff in this case. And, so owning your mistakes. The other thing that I think about is I started assuming leadership roles in school when I was in 3rd grade, and then, continued to do, if there was a club, I'll be the president of the club. In high school, I was the president of our junior and senior class. And I think back to that time and I think, wow, I had to learn how to communicate not only with the student body, but with the administrators in the school. I mean, a lot of times was the face of our school and promoting our school with community leaders, like Kiwanis and, those type of things. So learned a lot about communication, and obviously communication is key. I don't think we can ever arrive. I mean, we can always get better at communicating, and communicating is not always talking.
Yeah, part of it's the actions we take, right? It's the, holding ourselves accountable, being vulnerable at times, and even like you said, hey, we're going to own our stuff. We made a mistake. We're going to learn from it. We're going to get better.
Own it.
Not blaming others. And
right.
We're almost taught over time, not to ask for help or say, I don't know. And I know one of the things I've heard about technology partners, I think I've read it on your website too, is that you're building a structure, culture that's filled with trust. And I think that's really helping your teams and your people to thrive. And that's not exactly how it's said, but essentially it's the trust element enabling people to thrive. And I think a lot of that comes from the fact that you're willing to own your own stuff and be transparent, be communicating. Yeah. Is there more there to it that you're all doing to make sure that element of trust is present every day?
Yeah. Trust and transparency. So, one thing I'll just tell you about Technology Partners from the get-go, we have been very transparent with our model, with our business model, Darrin. And when we started 29 years ago, and I'll just educate your listeners just a little bit. When you're talking about contingent labor, a lot of companies will augment their staff with contingent labor. When we started 29 years ago, firms out there would never tell you, what they were paying you, what they were paying the talent. They didn't want, because they would try to maximize the margin between the bill rate to the client and what they were paying the talent. From day one, we've had a transparent model. We said, it's a $13 margin. Now it's higher than that now, a little bit higher than that now because of inflation and that, but we've never hidden that, and so our clients know for equal money, our clients are getting better talent, so it's not like we are bringing a junior person on for $20 an hour and charging the client like it would be a senior person. It's $80 an hour. So
that transparency is big. It doesn't big. Allow people to create their own stories, right? And it allows people to actually get connected to say, wait, you're willing to share that with me? Gosh, you're probably straightforward and straight shooter. And there's also, as you think about technology, there's always conversations about women in technology, right? You're CEO of this company, you're sourcing folks, partnering with different folks, and it seems to be an underrepresentation of women in technology. From your perspective, I'd love to know, has there been progress made? If so, what's working or what else needs to be done to help really get more women in the industry? Because it seems like some of the stats I've seen have kind of gone backwards in the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm. Well, yes. And since 2020, a lot of women have left the marketplace, right? Because of, having to juggle so many balls. It's just not worth it anymore. But yeah, we've made progress, but there's a lot of progress to be made. I think, and I may be getting this stat wrong, but I think, in terms of leadership for technology, it's less than 25% actually make it to leadership roles. And then when you add ethnicity in there, it goes even further down. But I think, there's a few things that we can do. I think those women who are in technology now, and I've got friends that are doing this, Darrin, I'm doing an amazing job. I've got a whole cadre of women in tech at MasterCard that are going in and they're mentoring other women and, even starting young, like middle school, going in and doing STEM programs. We've got and any time that Technology Partners has a chance to be a part of something like that, we've done a lot of that kind of thing. So really introducing young women earlier to the tech fields and the STEM fields, I think is one of the things that we can do. I think too that, what has happened is people kind of identify early, well, I'm just not good at math. I'm not good at math, so I could never do that. Well, we need to change that narrative. We need to really speak into young women saying, no, you can do this. You have an agility to learn, recognize, see them, right? And recognize in them the possibilities. Yep. So there's a lot that we can do. But yeah, we've still got a long way to go. We still have a long way to go, but it's those companies, another company, Bear, is huge on this. So they'll go in to schools and, middle school and talk to young women, so it's all of our responsibilities to be a part of the solution.
I agree. And I've seen certain universities even change the naming convention of the technology platforms to be kind of more current based, like getting into more of the data analytics side, people analytics, getting into business intelligence, and kind of just changing some of the conversations. So folks are saying, wait a minute, I am interested in that work. I can have an impact. And I think some of the work that you're doing, right, working alongside your clients is definitely aligned with folks that actually want to make a greater impact, which I hope will invite more equality into, this workspace. Because I think we need the creative mindsets from every angle, right? We need different perspectives, obviously, and the more we have, the better. And when you said the word possibilities, obviously Live Your Possible is the name of the podcast. And you have something on your website, Lisa, you're the CEO of this company, right? You probably know this stat. It's something like 10% of Fortune 500 CEOs are females today. It's pretty low. You're CEO of your company, which is wonderful. And I really appreciate that. And I have two questions related to that. And one is, I'm going to read something from your website, which is a note. And you say, we are thankful for the endless possibilities that are continuously making us all better. Because after all, what is really possible if we only believe? What are you and I missing out on when we allow fear or excuses to rob us of possibility? Let us hold each other to the standard of living each day full out by embracing the possibilities. Tell me more what that means to you.
Well, that particular blog or article that I wrote, you found that on LinkedIn, probably, I think, Darrin. But I will tell you what it was related to. So, again, Allie has Down syndrome. Right. And I'll try to shorten this story, but there is an organization here in St. Louis called the Independence Center that helps people with mental illness. Great, great organization. Helps people with mental illness get up on their feet, find jobs, supports their families because it impacts families too. Right. And so every year in St. Louis, there is Dancing with the St. Louis Stars. And this is where community leaders dance with a professional, and we raise a lot of money every year. And so they had asked me for a number of years to please come and dance, be one of the community people to come and dance and do this ballroom dancing evening. And, Darrin, I would just say, I love the organization. I don't feel like right now, this time in my life, I have the margin to do all, because it's a lot. I mean, it's you practice and all of this, I'm like, I just don't have the margin. And they're like, okay, well, that's fine. Well, one year, let's see, this would have been 2018. Yeah, 2018. They said, well, we know that you don't have the margin to dance and do all the practice, but would you please come be a judge for the evening? I said, oh, I can do that. It's like a few phrases, right? Nice lyrical moves. I'm just like, I have to have a few phrases down in my mind. I can definitely do that. It'd be fun, to go judge. And that's a one evening commitment. So come the weekend of the Dancing with St. Louis Stars and the Friday before the Saturday of the evening, my husband, Greg, gets the flu. He's in bed all weekend. So it comes Saturday and I'm like, oh, I have to go to this black tie event all by myself. So I asked Allie, I'm like, Allie, I've got this Dancing with the St. Louis Stars thing that I've got to go to. Would you want to go with me to that? She goes, yes, I love Dancing with the Stars. And she loves to get dressed up. So Darrin, she gets her little beautiful ball gown on. We go to this. I do my thing. And the chair of the board afterwards, and Allie, it only takes her about 5 seconds to have people wrapped right here. Oh, yeah. And she just is fun. I mean, she's out there dancing and just having a blast, brings so much joy to the evening. So the chair of the board, a few weeks later, he goes, Lisa, I have an idea for you. And I said, what's your idea? And he said, next year, let Allie dance so she can go to all the practices and you raise the money. And I'm like, Bill, are you sure? I said, are you serious? I mean, Allie has a developmental disability, not, how does it work, kind of thing. So our marketing department, again, stepped forward and said, let Allie be the something extra in the evening, for Dancing with the Stars. So Darrin, she'd never ballroom danced before, but she started practicing and, we got her an instructor and she started practicing about the fall of 2018. Goes in 2019 in January ends up winning the whole thing.
Oh, come on.
And this is her little special needs girl with typical developing, developing, community leaders. And yeah, there were 4 awards and she won all of them but one. And then there was some rules around that particular one. Ended up raising $140,000 for the evening. I mean, I think they raised $700,000 in total, right? But she was $140,000 of that. And yeah, and she just crushed it, so really my whole idea behind that, is that sometimes we may think, oh, I could never do that. She may never could do that. I mean, how could she learn to dance? How could, but look at the possibilities. And now Darrin, since that time, she has gone on to compete in a national competition. About 5 months ago, she ended up placing first in show tunes.
So incredible.
Look, if I had said, Bill, that's ridiculous. No, I'm sorry. We're just not going to do. I'm not going to risk her not being able to do it and then feeling like a failure or whatever. I mean, we can make up all these excuses, right? But it's the possibilities. And now she discovered something that she absolutely loves that we didn't even know that was a thing for her.
That's a beautiful, lovely story. It's incredible. It is more than just believing, right? She took the steps, started to embrace it, and now she's shining all around. It's
incredible. It inspires me. It really does. It inspires me. So now, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, I started taking with her ballroom dancing. And it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, just quickly too, with my my daughter, she started to do dance, and there's a call for dancing dads. And she asked me if I would do it. I'm like, oh God, reluctantly, I said yes. And so it was a bunch of dancing dads that would get together and practice and perform one routine. And I remember the day she realized that she had to go on stage, she was like 3 or 4. She's like, Daddy, I don't think I could do it. And I'm like, well, I'll be there with you. Like if you go up, I'll go up type of thing. And I was nervous too. Like, I can't dance. I mean, at least I could dance and be free and have fun.
Right.
We both did it. And, she's done dance now for 12 years. And I did that program for 10 years. And it was incredible. And I've learned so much through her eyes and her courage and her willingness to get on stage. It put me on stage. It put us both out there. And, we're both beaming from it. And it's wonderful, right? Again, allowing our kids to show us what we're all capable of.
I said, that's right. Well, I was just laughing to, sometimes we think, oh my goodness, I could never do that. Right. Well, here's what you do. You do it. You get out of your comfort zone. You be courageous. You go do it. And then what you realize is I did not die. I did not die. I can do this again. I think, one thing, it's a stepping stone for something else, right, Darrin? Because, you're like, I did that. I can do this. Right. And, and guess what? Sometimes we're going to fail. I mean, failure is just part of life. I mean, frame it however you want. I mean, I don't like the word failure, but it's like an opportunity to learn, right? An opportunity to learn. And there's going to be some times when you don't win, but if you've learned something, then you've won.
Yeah, you've won. Absolutely. It's, I think it kind of ties into, I think one of the talks that you give, I think you talk about growth mindsets, you talk about something extra. I think some of your speaking engagements when you're out there, I'm curious, do you have a favorite talk that you give and what that's about?
I've got so many that I love, and just stories of vision and courage. And I guess I would have to say something extra, because I tell a lot of fun stories about Allie and, how she has shown up. And then, now, Darrin, I've got 250 episodes, almost 250 episodes of something extra with amazing people like you that I've learned from, so yeah. And I like to weave some of those lessons in there when I'm talking to people. And I've learned so much, from doing the podcast, and you just hope that, you're sharing that with the listeners. And if there's 1 or 2 nuggets that they can take with them and put in their own tool belt for their own, leadership trajectory, then it's worth it. Right.
I agree. Yeah. Especially like with something extra as as you ask your guests, and what defines this? What's that one word? What's that something extra? And I think we should all do that, if they're on your show or not. If you're listening today, what's that one word that really excites you, empowers you, that shows up for you, that really helps you be different and accept that, who you are, your authentic self, and allow you to really, really shine and make an impact. And
embrace it, right? And Darrin, I'll give you one little tidbit for your listeners. I mean, I will have some people say, I don't know what my something extra is, and I'll always say, well, take 5 people that know you well and ask them. Ask your family, what do you believe is my something extra? And, and hopefully then you'll start to get some clarity and crystallize. And here's the bow on the whole thing. I always say, you are not given these gifts to keep them to yourself. You were given these gifts so that you could make a difference for somebody else and make an impact on the world. So we were given the gifts to share the gifts. So they weren't meant for you alone. I mean, they were meant so that you can go out and make your dent in the world, as Steve Jobs said.
Yeah. Give out to the world what you have. That's beautiful. Don't be selfish, right?
Don't be selfish. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Lisa, you give so much back, right? I often talk to folks about the joy and the love and the power we get from giving back. Not just the sense of doing it, it's just watching and experiencing. And you do so many things. You're on that mission that you mentioned in El Salvador. It looks like you're part of a group called Opportunity International. What are some of the things that you're doing, and how does that pick you up? How does that energize you? Like, what do you feel as you're going through that work?
Well, I think it all kind of comes back to purpose, right? I think it starts with that. Darrin, and having a very clear vision of what your purpose is. So if, and not to continue to reiterate this, but truly, if the 2 greatest commandments are love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and love your neighbor as yourself, loving people is part of my purpose. So, I think for me, I know that my greatest joy comes from living my purpose. And when I've lost my joy, oftentimes when I take a step back, I can really recognize and say, oh, wow, you know what? I'm too self-focused. If you are self-focused, if you're too self-focused, if you're just thinking about yourself and what brings you happiness, you're never going to have true joy, because it's never enough. Right. I mean, it's never enough. And it's not fulfilling to know that you're just filling up your own bucket. But yeah, so I'm always like looking at things through that filter. We're helping a young school right now in North St. Louis. It is it's almost a 24/7 daycare. But Yannick Jones is the founder of this school. And Darrin, it is like in one of the most impoverished areas in St. Louis. Well, for parents to go to a job, they have to, before, a child is in formal school, they've got to have some sort of childcare. Right. Well, Yannick saw the gap there. They founded the Williams Academy. They open at 6 a.m. and they're open till midnight, because some of these parents have to work 2 jobs. Right. But it's not a babysitting thing. I mean, they actually are teaching these kids with a STEAM curriculum, which is amazing. But Jenny, my EA, just took 20 iPads up there yesterday, for these children, to start like learning. And boy, I mean, that gives me joy. I mean, we can be part of that story. Now, we're not going to be we won't be the whole answer for Williams Academy, but boy, I mean, if we can be a piece of that story, there is no greater joy, than knowing that you're making an impact there. So yeah, Opportunity International is, we're on the board of governors for OI, and OI is a microfinance organization that is working in developing countries. So lots of work in Africa, lots of work in Colombia, lots of work in very impoverished places. Amazing story. If your listeners want to go and learn more, Atul Tandon, the CEO, was on my podcast. He was probably one of the first 20. Amazing story, what they're doing and the genesis of that. Because, sometimes what happens is there's an entrepreneur that has an idea, right? But what do they need, Darrin? They need a little capital.
Yeah.
Right? They need a little capital to get started. And there are story after story after story of OI going in there and making a microloan to an individual. And then that individual ended up growing their business and employing a whole village. Incredible impact. Incredible impact. So to be a little part of those kind of stories, I think at the end of the day, it's like, that's when I can lay my head on the pillow at night and say, okay, I've lived my purpose today.
Yeah, you're loving people in many different ways, helping people get a spark to overcome, their troubles that day, or maybe it gets them the energy to build out a business, as you mentioned, which is it's so amazing. I think I read something about it's not a handout, I think it's a hand up.
It's a hand up.
There's like trust built within the community. They're going to help each other pay it back. It's pretty powerful.
Incredible. You know what they do? Yes. And so they have the microloan, and usually these microloans average about $150. And so these people are put in what they call, like maybe 10 entrepreneurs are put in what they call trust groups. You and I are in a trust group, Darrin. We're helping one another with our business. We're keeping one another accountable. We're learning from one another. But if I renege on my loan, you pay my loan back.
Yeah.
Well, that's like positive peer pressure, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because I don't want you to have to pay my loan back. I mean, that would be an embarrassment to me. That would be, it's not meant to be an embarrassment, but I'm just saying there's an accountability there. Well, like 97% of those loans that are made are paid back because there is this interwoven accountability in these trust groups. I mean, we can learn some things from that, right? But I am telling you, the impact that they are making is just tremendous. And the stories, kind of going back, Darrin, to, even like what I was talking about. And when you asked me about, together we're improving our world, we're big on storytelling. Yeah, we want to tell the stories about what Bear is doing to improve the world, and MasterCard is doing, and Panera, and, the other enterprise, Rent-A-Car, and the other organizations that we work with. We want to tell those positive stories because I think even as your people and your team hear those positive stories, even like if you're so far removed from those stories, like maybe, if you're in the accounting function, you may not always hear those stories, but we're very big on pulling those stories forward and showcasing those stories, because I think then it helps people to go, hey, I can see my piece in this whole thing, and mapping it back to these amazing stories. Yeah, the stories are, and so OI just has hundreds and thousands of those kind of stories, which are just incredible.
The stories are making emotional connections. Emotional connections allow us to actually truly feel like we are making a greater impact. And what greater gift is that?
Yes, for sure.
I'm working with a group called Coster Kuhn, and they manufacture beeswax, and they actually started a program out in Africa where they're helping to source and teach women how to be beekeepers. So they have a different livelihood. They can take care of themselves and their families. And they actually have a tagline that says, "We are all one hive." And it's beautiful because it's doing exactly what you're saying. It's really telling a story about helping people across the world, giving people a livelihood. It's helping sustainability in our environment, helping the bees continue to do what they do to help us, grow more flowers for you, Lisa, and do many other things. Before we sign off, I'd love to hear, and if there's anything else, first of all, that you want to share with our audience, and then second of all, to finish up with, what do you do for fun?
Oh my goodness, what do I do for fun? Well, our family just got back from a few weeks in Naples, Florida. We love the beach. We love the beach. We have a 10-year-old grandson, Darrin, that loves amusement parks. And Allie does too. She would say, Disney is my dream. That's what going to Disney is my dream. So the last 4 or 5 years, I think we've done at least one big amusement park every year. We've done Legoland. We've done Silver Dollar City. We just got back and did Universal and SeaWorld. So that's fun. We love our family is, we absolutely love just being together, our family. But I do some gardening. We've got 18 raised vegetable beds, not quite as big as what my dad had, but do some gardening, which is a lot of fun. Greg and I love to bike. We love to bike. That's a lot of fun. Our family, just anything that we can do as a family, we're all in for that. So our grandson plays soccer. He plays competitive soccer. So we're at every soccer game. As I know your listeners all have kids that are in sports. It's like, it's a lot, but it's fun. And then now I'm ballroom dancing with Allie.
So fun.
Which is really, really fun. My instructor, I absolutely adore him, but he's like, okay, now let's get ready for a competition. I'm like, now, David, I am just doing this for fun. If you start wanting me to compete and stuff like that, it's not going to be fun for me anymore. But Allie can do the competitions, but I'm just doing it. It's great exercise. I mean, I am perspiring at the end of that hour, dear, and it's hard.
Yeah.
Dancing is hard.
It is hard.
It is. I mean, physically, and then just the mental capacity that it takes to remember steps. And it's really good. Tim Wentworth and Robin Wentworth are really good friends. And Tim was the CEO for Express Scripts, which then Cigna bought Express Scripts. And Robin and Tim dance. They're ballroom dancers and they compete. And I think, what did Tim say? He said, when you step out there on the dance floor, when you're competing, ballroom dancing, it's the same kind of feeling as it would be like jumping out of a plane. It's like, ooh, your heart comes up into your throat and, it's a little bit unnerving, but, hey, again, it's stepping out of your comfort zone, right? And courage over comfort.
Well, we get stronger. I feel that way. We appreciate things differently when we step in and realize, okay, we're going to get vulnerable here for a second and we're going to get our heart pumping and try new things. And to me, that's growth.
Yes, for sure.
That's beautiful.
For sure.
Any final comments, Lisa, as far as to help our listeners to live their possible, to overcome challenges, to be themselves, to really help us light up the world differently?
Yeah. The only thing I'm just going to reiterate, be you. Don't waste your energy trying to be somebody else. Figure out who you are. Figure out those God-given something extras and go share it with the world. Go make a difference. Go make a difference in the world, and there's a multiplicity thing because, Darrin, as we figured that out ourselves, what I always hope is leaders, and I challenge leaders, sometimes it's difficult for people to see those things in themselves. So as a leader, be that person that's calling something out in one of your team members. Anytime you see that special something that they've got, say, Darrin, I notice, in that meeting, that how you encourage, you're an encourager, call it out in that person, and that's what I would say.
Well, I really appreciate you being on the show. I admire all the giving and the love you're bringing out to the world. And please give Allie an extra hug. She seems quite special, and the rest of your family. And again, you're an inspiration, and I'm honored to be friends of yours. And I look forward to our next chat.
I do too. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun, Darrin. I always feel like I come away richer after we've spoken. So thank you so much for what you're doing.
Thank you very much. Oh my gosh. Thank you, Lisa, for joining us on the show. I am sitting here in awe of how much you and your daughter, Allie, are doing to spark possibilities around the world. Some of your life lessons we could all grow from are as follows. Lisa learned at an early age to own her mistakes and be sorry when she needed to. Lisa went on to share how she grows in these situations. As a leader, is there something you should take responsibility for and not only admit, yet to communicate with people how you will be better or grow from it? This level of transparency builds trust and credibility, even though we are vulnerable for the betterment of the collective team. Try it out or be ready the next time you make a mistake that impacts others. Now, relentless, consistent focus on the things that matter is the mantra that she shared with us and she's living by in 2023. Do you have one word or a mantra that you're living intentionally by every day? Adopt one or think of a few words that will empower you so you can experience the power of focus and what matters most to you. She is giving back in so many ways, fueling part of her purpose to love more and fill herself with joy. Giving and helping others is a two-way street. So connect with something to give back to. I promise you it will light you up too. Now, what is your something extra? If unsure, follow the tips that Lisa gave us and ask others to give you their perspective on what your something extra is. For me, I believe living with wonderment is a game changer. To see the good and the beauty in people in the world to bind us rather than darkness and divisiveness that separates us. Now, I appreciate you listening to the end and taking these steps to heart as you pursue being your happiest, authentic self to help others live their possible and be rewarded for living your possible too.
That's all for today's episode. If you liked the show, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Live Your Possible dares to unlock your fullest potential and become an avenue for others to do the same. Join the community by visiting ignitehappy.com. It's time to discover endless possibilities with equal opportunity for all. See you again next week for more insights on how you can live your possible.